Hello sustainable growers, this is Jonathan from Melbourne Aquaponics. Today it's a very special video, it's an interview actually of them from the company Urban Seedlings. They are growing seedlings in the city center of Melbourne. It's just an amazing company with a big heart that I visited this morning. I'm very glad to be able to share this experience with you. So if you are into the area in Melbourne and you want to visit them, I'm going to put Dan's contact into the description, so there is a website and you can definitely contact them and arrange a meeting to be able to visit their setup. Hello sustainable growers, today I'm with Dan from Urban Seedlings. Hi Dan, how are you?
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you for the invite. It's amazing to be here with you.
Yeah, good to have you here.
Thank you very much. So Dan, can you talk about this organization, Urban Seedlings? How has it been created, who created it, and what is the aim of this organization?
Yeah, sure. So we're sitting in Collins Street right now, between Little Collins Street and Collins Street in Melbourne. And people would know the area. Collins Street is a very rich area at the front. Right behind here is a laneway in which a lot of this damage has been experienced over the years, including deaths through heroin overdose from the 90s, to homeless people that use this place regularly as a place to sleep, and all kinds of temporary residents who come in to socialise. So it's been a very unique place for 20 years. The room that we're sitting in right now used to be a cafe that used to prepare meals for the homeless and use this as a place of welcome and of meeting for people from the top end of Harrison and Collins Street and from the laneways that you see around Melbourne.
Yeah.
So a very unique place that sort of combines all classes, all shapes and sizes in one place over food. We really believe in the concept of having a common table. And that's what we want to try to create in the community, places of welcome where everyone can feel welcome. So how Urban Seedlings came about was through its parent organisation, which was Seedlings for for 20 years. Urban Seedlings is just another expression of the passions and creativity of the people that live in this place. There are currently 6 of us who live in this place, and we're interested in the community development as well as gardening, and put that together, and we just kind of do this concept of
This is just fantastic. So when we see this area, I'm going to take the camera and we'll have a look around. It's quite small actually, and we think that it was coffee before, and now we see those greens everywhere. Like it's green. There is an aquaponics setup here. There are also a lot of succulents that are growing there to purify the air. Ben is going to explain us what is the project and the aim of this little unit here. And then we got a little vertical garden. There is a worm farm, a mushroom production area, and there is a little kitchen where probably in the future you can still give some drinks or those kind of things. I mean, there are a lot of projects going on here. It's just amazing what you guys can do in such a small area. In terms of productivity idea, I think it's fantastic, and everyone should come here and have a look at this fantastic area, because it's really green in the middle of the city. We have to think that we are in the middle of Melbourne here, and it's just, we got plants everywhere, we got the fish, we got the water running, so the atmosphere here is really unique. When you are outside, you hear the noise of the cars, it's a really busy city, and you come inside and you are like in heaven, you know, it's really a different atmosphere. I think it's very interesting. So then, can you tell us a bit more about this aquaponics unit that you have here?
Yeah.
I see that obviously you got a fish tank, so that's an IBC, guys. Classic IBC that has been kept on the top. So I imagine you got approximately 700 liters of water. Yeah. And inside we're going to have a closed loop, but yeah, there are some fish, some silverfish. Yeah. So how many have you got at the moment?
Only 9 fingerlings. Yeah. We work to do it up slowly. Yeah. And what you can see here is the tray system It's a constant flow system.
Yeah.
For those who know about that. And it's surely that in particular. This used to actually be upstairs, holding books or folders and that sort of thing. But we wanted to make something that was easily replicable.
So that's sorry Dan to cut you, but I think that's a fantastic thing in aquaponics. As soon as you can recycle something, here you see, Dan saw this shelf. It was a bookshelf, and he transformed it into a support for the aquaponics setup. So he didn't invest anything. Most of the time, I try to highlight the fact that anyone who wants to grow some food in aquaponics can do it with very low budget. And here we have a perfect example where you basically recycle something that was useless in something of value to grow some healthy food. I think that's fantastic. Good on you then.
It's a great way of thinking about sustainability, isn't it?
Exactly. That's the idea. Yeah, instead of always buying anything and going for other consumption, try to recycle what you already have at home that you don't use. So fantastic.
Yeah. And likewise with the lights, we got them from pretty much people who are just throwing away stuff with that and skips in town. The only thing that we have to buy will be $60 lights.
Yeah, so that's specific lights for the seedlings, because the seedlings at the early stage of growth, they need a very specific length of light and a certain quantity. So here we got some specific lights that are really adapted to this purpose. Because what we haven't said is that the purpose of this specific unit here is to grow seedlings, right? Yeah. So what kind of seedlings are you growing there? Yeah. I saw that. I mean, we had a little look just before, and we saw that there is a large variety. Yeah. Can you just describe a few of them?
Yeah, sure. So we've got about 8 varieties of microgreens at the moment. It's really unfortunate because they've just come at a stage we harvested 2 days ago and replanted seeds. So a couple of days ago we had snow peas growing up almost past the lights wild. So we've eaten as much as we can. We're going through a new crop just experiment. What you see down below is a closed cycle non-aquaponics setup, so no fish in that system.
Yeah, so the one on the bottom is kind of a reference.
Yeah,
to try to basically appreciate the quality of aquaponics or the growth that is used by aquaponics. So basically the two systems on the top, the two different shells on the top, they are linked to the aquaponics setup. The one on the bottom is just linked to an empty tank. So there are no nutrients here. The seedlings are only growing from the energy they got in the seeds, while the ones on the top, they are growing from obviously the nitrogen generated by the silver bugs that are into the system. So that's very interesting. And I think that's something we should have a close look, because it's very interesting if you can have some pictures of what you can grow without fish and the difference with a real aquaponics setup.
Yep, and hopefully you can come back in the later stage and use the photos of what happened after 2 weeks. So that's a typical growth cycle for microgreens. So what you're going to be looking at is a tray that's filled. On the bottom is paper, paper toweling, and then on top of that is about 1 centimetre of perlite. Really cheap, accessible medium, and that is just it's a constant flow system. So perlite's just soaking up the water, just enough water for the seeds.
Yeah. So have you done several experimentations to know exactly the level of nutrition required, or how did you put the system in place? Have you got any previous experience, or did you have an expert that came here to help you?
So my business partners, Jeff and Sherry, they come from Lexington, Kentucky, and worked with another one of their friends who've done a large-scale aquaponics system. This is kind of a small-scale version of what they use. So in terms of the actual water level, it's we basically, you'll see it later, we just use PVC pipe. It's nothing sophisticated at all. Just enough to raise the level of water, so you've just got enough for the perlite to soak up. I think it's about a couple of an inch or so. Yeah, you could apply some of this.
Yeah, so the aim of this microfilm of water on the bottom of the tank is really to allow the perlite to be completely wet, right? And basically, I don't think it's rocket science, but you just want to make sure that basically the perlite is wet, and that's it, right? You don't want to overflow the system. Exactly. Otherwise, then you got a problem of anaerobic environment on the very bottom of the perlite. So you you just want to make sure that the product is wet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the aquaponics, the RBCs is filled with, again, around about 2 to 3 centimeters of gravel at the bottom to create a bit of medium bacteria growth.
Okay.
So the system is 2 months old right now, so it's still got a lot of time to develop.
Yeah.
With a small number of fish that we're using, it's still back in longer than average time. We're going to add to that and sort of pump up the nitrate levels.
Okay. I've been into a whole cycle before putting the fish, a cycling system.
Yeah.
And do you monitor the water? Do you test the water sometimes with that?
Yeah, we test it currently. We only test it once a week. Usually we test it every day, of course, but they're very low levels.
Yeah.
So you test it regularly.
Exactly. So after a while you feel confident and you don't need to test every day anymore.
Yeah.
You basically know the system. You just do a checkpoint every week to make sure that you're still on track.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are confident enough to do the water test every day.
Exactly.
And that's what I do as well in my test. So that's what I would advise anyone to do. When you start an aquaponics setup, you don't really know what you are doing. You are learning. So obviously you want to test it very often to make sure that you understand what is happening to the water. And once it's running, you get a bit of confidence. You see that there is not much variation between the levels. And then you basically get used to it and you see the behavior of the fish. So testing the water once a week becomes something, I think it's enough. So once a week, yeah. That's perfect. What will you show us then? Are you done with this setup or?
Well, that's pretty much that setup. It's the same up here.
Yeah.
Up to bunch of things that you're growing, the tatsoi, cabbage, mustard. We've got some wheatgrass as well. So we're changing and replicating, so no one crop is growing twice in the same tray. So we can get vegetable lights. And one point about the lights is we've kept them white, and that's purely because you can get better growth using different frequencies of light, obviously. But we kept it white because it is a cooperative social space and it's really happy, visible, and not looking too weird and purple.
Yeah. That's great.
It's important consideration.
So one of the things I noticed the first time you described a new project to me is that obviously because you are growing things by batch, you are growing seedlings, so you're going to put your polarizing in place. So then when you harvest the whole thing, right? You don't leave any polarizing in the system, you renew the polarizing new one. So the only thing that I can think of that could be an issue is that when you harvest the crop, you harvest the bacteria that are going in the polarized at the same time. And into this whole system, you always basically collect the bacteria and put new media in place, new polarized. You don't have any media that stays in place with a good biomass of bacteria. So obviously when you grow some fingerlings, it may not be a problem because you still have bacteria growing in the system. But when the fish get bigger, you produce a bit more ammonia and therefore nitrates. Nitrate is very toxic for the fish, and ammonia as well. If you harvest your veggies, you're going to remove all the bacteria, and from one day to another, you have no bacteria anymore to transform this ammonia in nitrate and nitrates. So that's where you may have some little problems to regulate the nitrogen cycle.
That was a good point.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, if it was my system, I would probably put a grow bed aside as well. I know a classic grow bed. But basically, you got a media with some bacteria on it, but that stays on all the time. And then you can still have new water setup, where basically you still have the batches. But at least you always have a certain population of bacteria that is here, and that is going to ensure that all the ammonia from the fish is going to be processed and transformed into nitrates that is going to be available for the vegetable. So this grow bed can be a classic aquaponics grow bed. Or you can put a grow bed even without vegetables, because anyway you're going to use the nitrates here. Or you can just use what we call a biological filter.
Okay.
A biofilter.
Yeah,
exactly. So it would be a really good option. But for now, obviously, if you got just a few fish, and you are just growing a few seeds, it's probably working quite well at the moment. Okay. And I see that your water is a little bit dirty.
Yeah.
Is it because you just moved to a whole system and made a bit of...
It's possible. It did get significantly cloudy. I wonder if the wood had anything to do with it.
Yeah. That's right. Most of the time when we put the wood in an aquarium, it always ends the water a little bit.
Yeah, we soaked it obviously in a separate tank.
Yeah.
We took it out, put it in there, and put it in.
Okay.
I've never had anything. We added a part of gravel and forest for the fish. You can see the lighting process.
Yeah.
Yes, we're a bit disappointed with that. And probably filters and stuff. Testing the water doesn't indicate anything, so people need to test it until you put it in up.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, good. That's great. So, if people want to find you there, if people want to visit Urban Seedlings, what is the point of contact? I saw that you have a fantastic website with a contact us page.
Yeah.
Is there a specific, that's the best way to
Well,
contact?
Facebook page, we've got a Facebook page as well, so I know people get stuff at Urban Seedlings, but the website's urbanseedlings.org, and the contact details on that page. And it includes a link, if you want to have more photos, there's a link to Jeff Maddox's Linker page, so it's a very vital page in the system for the photos in this space.
Excellent, thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
So, is there a specific day where people can come and have a look at the system, or you just organize things when they call you? How does it work, and how is it going to work in the future?
Yeah.
Get an idea of how you want to organize social activities.
Yeah, well, the ultimate aim of this space, and we haven't explained it so far because we haven't seen this space in the middle, but which Jonathan will show you later, is that we want to run workshops that with the community to teach people about propagation. The importance of living with plants. We want to try and put people, plates, and plants together in this space and encourage people to do the same in their urban environments. So that's the ultimate aim of this, and to do that, we'd obviously be looking at opening in traditional business hours. But at the moment, it's very early. It's only 2 months we've been doing this, and so if you want to come visit, you'd be more than welcome. As Jonathan's going today, contact us on our Urban Seedlings page, drop us an email, give us a phone call, and we'd be more than happy to show you around.
Excellent, thank you, Dan.
No worries.
So what kind of sprouts are you growing?
So we've got some Mizuna, Tatsu, this is cabbage.
Oh yeah.
Asian cabbage, bok choy, rocket, spinach at the back. Got some wheat grass there.
Okay.
In the top, what do we got here? Watercress. More cabbage there.
Rocket here
Rockets.
and there. I'm not sure. Yeah.
You might not have written it all.
Yeah, it is, but on the side. But cress, I think.
Yeah, watercress. Yeah, and this system here is just operating on its own without any fish at all.
Okay. So you are comparing.
Just comparing the growth.
Yeah. So did you notice a difference until now?
Yeah, well these were growing well, but not as far as it was with fish.
Okay, so because in this water here you didn't put any nitrogen, or did you put nothing?
The basic.
That's good. So you got a really good comparison.
Yeah.
So those ones, they are just growing from the reserve into the seed, right?
Exactly.
There is no nutrient into the water at all.
Yeah. Just to compare.
And
for these ones, this is
the plan, the map of the process.
And these plugs were just basically used. I haven't put them back, but we put them in these ones to soak up the excess nutrients if we produce them. At the moment, we've only got 9 or so little
Silver perch?
silver perch fingerlings. They're all hidden.
Yeah.
Plucking all the roots out.
You know, those fish, they are very shy.
I think anyone who's lived in a city or worked in an office building knows about seed growing. Yes. It has a toxic effect. It's working in the environment without anything natural in it.
I'm very sorry, I just modified a bit.
Yeah,
perfect.
At the top. Yeah. Again, this isn't anything extraordinary. We went to an op shop in Geelong and picked up some of the stuff to hang, ornaments and plants off the roof. to give the fake grasses, just to give you an impression of what it could be.
Yeah.
And I think the whole pacifying aspect of looking in green is just very tangible for people when they walk through the room and completely something green. What you see there is some basic succulents and air purifying plants, and people probably know about the NASA list of 14 so really good air purifying plants. We've got some ivies and some ferns there to demonstrate what can be hung in very small spaces. A bit of Spanish moss with a bit of effect there, and some lights. I think really it's something that's doable by anyone that's lives in an apartment in the city. Or on the balcony, you've got some of these plants on the balcony as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as we know, we live in a, I mean, for people who live in a city like here in Melbourne, in the city centre, there are a lot of particles into the air that are harmful for us. There are very few studies that actually show us exactly what is the impact of pollution on human health, right?
Yeah.
But putting a plant into your apartment or into your kitchen doesn't hurt, right? It just increases the atmosphere, it improves the atmosphere.
The concentration.
Exactly. Exactly. It increases the concentration, that's a good one.
Reduces stress.
Yeah, it reduces the stress. That's a big one. I think we don't really realize how much contact with nature can decrease our stress level. And even a few plants in an apartment, obviously it's not a huge forest, but it can make a real difference. And in terms of air purification, I don't have any data about it, but I heard a lot of good things about the fact that. Sorry?
There's a lot of stuff on the web.
Yeah. So because obviously the plants during the day, thanks to photosynthesis, they're going to produce a lot of oxygen, which is excellent for us. But in the same time, they're going to also consume or absorb a lot of pollutants, and they're going to stop those pollutants. So the pollutant becomes not available into the air anymore, and you are not going to absorb it. So thanks to the plant, we're going to live in better health. So what kind of plants do you advise here? I see that you got some succulents, but you also got some ferns. Exactly, yeah. I don't know if you can see it very well on the camera. Yeah.
The ficus obviously in the corner.
Yes.
The typical ones is a snake plant that you can't see, it's off camera.
Yes, I'm gonna put a zoom of this plant in the later on when I put the movie together. And what about aloe vera? You know, this kind of big succulent. Oh, you got some here. I see. Yeah,
there.
Excellent.
Peace lily that you can see later on the wall.
Yeah,
that's another really good air purifier. The ivy. That's probably the major ones. We've got a staghorn fern there, which is probably more for the aesthetics than the purifying aspect of it.
It looks amazing on the wall. To be honest, it looks a bit like a chest.
Yeah, that's a small one. We've got big plans for that in 2 years. We really like to sort of see these things grow in the laneway as well. You think about the very dark environments that are laneways in the city. There's no reason why there can't be more greenery.
Yeah.
So if you're a city dweller and you want some ideas, or you have some ideas, come and share them with us, because the city of Melbourne has itself a green your laneway project, and that's with the idea of making the spaces of the laneways more inhabitable and pleasing to the eye, and just generally more welcome to the community. So things like staghorn ferns can probably find a space in your laneways.
Yeah, I completely agree with this comment. I got a bit of... Yeah, so thanks then. As you can see then, I've got a really good sense. No, I'm going to cut that. So, yeah, thanks then. I do share your point of view, and I see that you really want to create a community around green and sharing ideas. So there are a lot of things to do to improve the air into the city, and also improve basically the beauty of the city. Putting a bit of green into the city. There are a lot of areas, as you said, where we can improve this kind of thing. I'm sure with the community that you're going to create, if everyone put a bit of green in his own house, outside, inside, it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, change one plant at a time. That's what we're after.
Exactly. So here we are in front of a fantastic vertical garden. Then can you just explain us how it works? I see that there are a lot of different things, a lot of different units with different plants. And I see that we can see some here some levels.
Yeah.
What does it indicate? It indicates the level of water into the unit, right?
Yeah.
And is each unit separate or do they work together?
No, it's all together, and they basically slot into place on these metal rails that you can see.
Okay.
So that's pretty much one unit. You can stack them high, but then they only work in units of 6.
Okay. So
Actually, no, wrong. You can stack them higher than that. Every one of these wicking beds has a little entry point for the water from the system above. So they just trickle down basically. If you've used the wicking bed, you understand how this works.
yeah. So basically, it's definitely possible to have an aquaponics setup on the bottom or a fish tank on the bottom, and to basically raise the water on the top of the first unit, and the water is going to drop down to the unit underneath until it reaches finally the fish tank level. So you can use it as a grow bed again, and I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon. It's something that people just start with exactly just one tray at a time, and then as they get more complex, you can just stack the trays up in your balcony or inside as well. And these are all examples of plants that grow really well indoors. Again, look on the web for information. It's pretty hard to kill these plants. They're pretty hardy for the most part, and they're very good for not only aesthetic purposes, but purifying your air.
Yeah, so that's something that we can have outside, but we can also have inside. And obviously here is the case. We got them inside, they look fantastic, and they purify the atmosphere, as we just developed just before. So well done then, it looks amazing. And I see that you got some nice flowers, nice aroma flowers. It's really add a lot of things into the ambience of the room.
Yeah, thanks.
Congratulations.
No, it's a real testament to the work with my colleagues, Jeff and Sherry Maddock, who've really done some amazing work in community development and agriculture, community agriculture in Kentucky. And it was all outdoors. So many of you would be similarly outdoor gardeners, and you'd be thinking, oh, can I make the transition to an indoor environment by moving to the city? Don't be discouraged. Jeff and Sherry are an example, and myself I'm an example of an outdoor gardener who's come indoors. We don't want to do everything indoors, but we want to show that it's possible to do stuff indoors and in small, relatively small spaces too. So if you're a King Green family, you've only tried stuff outdoors, think outside the box. Think about where the world is heading, because the world is increasingly urbanizing. Whether we like it or not, cities are more and more the home of people around the world.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with this point. I think for people who have the chance to be in the countryside, obviously you're going to use the space you have outside, especially if you can grow food in a greenhouse. That's where basically you're going to have the best yields, right? Because what a plant needs to grow is obviously some nutrients that with an aquaponic setup it's not a problem. But then obviously you need light and you need temperature, right? You need a high temperature. So if you get a greenhouse, you're going to have the light and the temperature that are going to be ensured by the sun naturally, so without using any resource. But if you are in a city, it's very hard. Sometimes you can put a little greenhouse in your terrace. But for people who don't have this chance, you still have the option to grow some food in your house, inside. And this kind of example is a fantastic compromise, fantastic way to grow some food inside or to have some green plants inside your house.
So what we're looking at here is a completely full IBC, almost about 800 litres, and that will eventually, one of the two will be a control system that we can use to sort of act as a benchmark.
So you would like to leave one without fish, or do you need it?
For the moment, without fish, but we'd like to have 2 aquaponics systems going at the same time, and then one acting as control. So you have a control tray for fish.
Yeah. So you basically use one for the tests, and the other one as a control to see the difference.
Oh, and I was mentioning, these can be sort of sealed off. You can imagine you put Velcro strips on this with plastic sheeting, you can control the environment. So that's another way of thinking. If you want to sort of make higher temperature and humidity, you could close it off, but the reason we've left it open is because, again, aesthetics are important in a community space, so we've left that open. But this is currently providing water for the extra water for the fish, because sometimes you get evaporation loss, obviously, and then you not chlorinated water for the plants. So it's acting as both, but eventually it'll be operating as an A&B system.
Yes.
For aquaponics.
Yes. Yes. And it makes a lot of sense. So those two setups, obviously here we are in a social environment where people are going to come and then it's going to present some nice workshop, then with team. But if you do it at home, always try to be, to be sustainable as much as possible and to cut the cost as low as possible. And the cost in terms of electricity consumption especially. Because you know that everything you do has an impact on the environment. As soon as you start to put a light on, it has an impact. So when you select a light, try to select the light with the lowest power consumption. But then once you got the setup in place, try to insulate it as much as possible to limit the temperature loss, basically, and to be able to maintain good conditions in the aquaponics setup for the lowest cost possible. Lowest cost for you, for your wallet, but also for the planet. So then thanks for this fantastic presentation for those two setups. It's fantastic, and we completely understand why you want to leave it open. Because obviously if you start to insulate those two setups, then it's going to be not accessible for the public, right? If you receive some people here to explain them how aquaponics work and they can't have a look to the setup, would be a big shame. So here, the only way to insulate the setup is to basically improve the insulation of the whole room, basically, right?
Yeah. You could leave it with clear translucent plastic. That's an option. But if any of you out there have any ideas, we're at testing phase, in a very early testing phase, so more than happy to receive your input and suggestions to how to make this place not only a good aquaponics setup, but a really good community setup as well.
Yeah, exactly. So the only thing I was thinking of, if you start to close the setup with some transparent sheets, the good point is that obviously you're going to keep a bit of heat in the setup, but unfortunately in aquaponics, as soon as we start to close the setup, like in a greenhouse, the moisture level increased to 100%, which is really good because it's going to limit the evaporation into the tanks. So that's what you want in a greenhouse. But here, if we have to move the setup from outside, unfortunately, you're going to have some condensation on the transparent sheet. And then, obviously, I don't know how it's going to work, but you may not be able to see through the sheet, the transparent sheet. I mean, obviously, you can put a ventilation in place and all those kind of things. Yeah. And you would probably have to if you go for a big production of greens, because they consume a lot of CO2.
Right.
But anyway, we're not at this stage yet.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a small space. We're also, we haven't mentioned already, but we're trying to grow other things like mushrooms.
Yes.
So developing microclimates is something we're looking at as a solution for a good closed food cycle system that could include not only the worms that we have here, but the aquaponics, mushrooms, black salt fly, we haven't talked about that yet, but that's another huge issue of creating microclimates amenable to black salt flies and their larvae.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so black soldier is a fly that is very much used in the watch for the larvae, because this fly is able to eat a large quantity of food and then it spawns some little larvae. And you can use those larvae to feed your fish in aquaponics, or you can use it to feed your chicken or anything. The only limit we have here in Melbourne is the temperature, obviously, because black soldier need a temperature of 28 degrees or quite warm temperature. And here in Melbourne, in winter, it can drop to 0 degrees for a few days. So obviously in winter it would be very much challenging to keep them alive. You have to keep them inside in a very much insulated room, so that's the same thing. What is going to be the cost and the impact of the environment? And you have to put it in perspective with what is the beneficial impact of growing those kind of fish food, basically. So it's a natural fish food, but if you have to consume a lot of electricity to maintain it and to produce it, then you have to make sure that it's still sustainable. But aside from this specific point, if you live in an area where the temperature is high enough, we definitely recommend you to grow this kind of insects, because it's a fantastic food for the fish, very high in vitamin, and that's completely free. If you can grow it outside without having to use a heater, it's fantastic. In Melbourne Aquaponics, we use also some duckweed, as we were talking about just before. So duckweed is an aquatic plant that grows on the surface of the water. If you take a bit of water from your aquaponics setup that is very high in nitrates, the duckweed are going to grow like crazy if you put them in the sun. So it's free, completely free, this one. It's very easy to do, and it's really good food for silver perch only, or for carp, or for jet perch if you got jet perch, or tilapia, for any fish that is basically that can turn vegetarian. That's a fantastic food. But then if you got trout, it's not going to work. So black soldier is a food that is it's basically an insect, right? So a lot of fish are able to accept black soldier. It's very high in vitamin, and it's definitely a very good food. So I would classify it at top level if you can go black soldier. But if you can't, you have to find other ways. We also talk about worms. Worms are a fantastic food for the fish, obviously. If you can grow a nice quantity of worms, you're going to be able to feed your fish with the best kind of fish food you can have for probably a very good price. So the problem is always to be able to harvest the needed quantity of worms, because worms are easy to grow, but a bit harder to harvest in correct quantity, in big quantities. But anyway, I'm going off topic. Here you're going to grow a bit of black soldier, and you're going to do some studies to try to grow those black soldiers with minimum electricity consumption. So I wish you success into it. And yeah, keep us in the loop, let us know how you go. Hopefully you're going to succeed. So here you're also growing some worms, right? You have a worm farm as well. I'm just going to turn this camera, because here you can see that's where we are. You see we were there before with the succulents, and here we got a little worm farm where basically Dan and the team are using all the waste of the systems. And what kind of other compost are you putting into this bin?
For most of you that have started a compost, it takes a while to get set up. We start with your typical 500 or 1,000 worms. This worm, which some of you might recognise, is one of highly recommended. Apparently, when it gets going, it's around about 2 kilograms a week that it processes, so probably a decent amount. Yeah. And so we've about a month into it now, so it's just basically small scraps and allowing them to eat through their bedding, so paper and newspaper, etc.
Okay, and are you using the compost worms that you put at the beginning of the setup? When you put the system in place?
Yeah, so you often get your coconut coir, which is a really good bedding, and add a bit of paper to that, and some scraps and stuff that we get into the room from. Yeah.
Fantastic, yeah. So
10,000 worms is what it will eventually have to around about 10,000.
And do you plan to harvest the worms regularly to feed the fish?
Well, I was going to ask you that. Have you tried it before, and what are your results with that? That's something we look at as well.
So what I do, in Melbourne Aquaponics, we got a big compost bin. But the problem is, at the beginning, I was using this compost bin. I was collecting the worms from the bin, and I was feeding my fish with. Well, not 100%, right? But I was using it once a week. I was giving some worms to my fish, which was fantastic. But then we integrated the chicken into the area, and the chicken started to go for the worms. They ate a lot of worms. So now, when I want to find the worms, I have some trouble, because my compost is not like this one. It's an open compost where basically I can put my waste into the compost bin, but the chicken can also jump on the compost bin and eat whatever they want. So all the leftover from our meal at home, you just throw them in the compost. But at the same time, the chicken can run into it, they can jump into it, and they eat whatever they want. So there is no loss. They eat everything they want, and then the rest stays there, and then the rest goes into the compost process, right, with worms, bacteria, fungus, and all this biological activity. And on the very bottom of the compost, I collect the earth that I put in the classic garden, which is very rich, very black, and the best thing you can use basically for a garden. But I know that when I started this process, when I didn't have the chicken, there were worms everywhere. As soon as you were just looking under a leaf, or you just took the shovel and you you just start to dig into the compost. You have the worms everywhere. But now the chicken are really looking for the worms. So if I want worms, I have to dig quite deeply. Right. That's not something I do very regularly now. I try to now focus on the worms that are living into the aquaponics setup. Because we got worms in the grow bed, and I try to collect the worms from the grow bed and to feed the fish with them. I'm trying to find the best way to collect them at the moment. That's a bit the project of the moment.
That's good. That's another reason to set up a grow bed of our own.
Yeah.
Just to keep it isolated, chickens obviously. But, yeah, we'll experiment with that.
Yeah. So can we have a look at inside the cat also? Yeah. Okay, so we always got some newspapers on the top to keep the moisture down, and then underneath we can see that there are some worms. You can really see them. It's full of worms actually.
Yep. And then just a bit of cardboard over the top. And
yes.
As you know, like a blanket over the top, which could be your stuff you buy from Bunnings or whatever hardware store. Just soaked newspaper is all you need.
Yeah, exactly. So what I see here is a bit of perlite from your process.
Yeah.
From the grow bed. So how does it work when you harvest your seedlings? How do you sort the seedlings from the perlite?
Yeah, it was a really tricky issue. Everything is obviously knotted together. I don't know if you've tried it before, and we tried to extricate as much of the plants as possible, but you just get stuck with too much perlite.
Yeah.
Which raises the issue: do you bother? I mean,
do you use perlite?
It's a cheap product, and you could try and recycle it, but is it worth the extra labor of trying to get rid of all the...
Exactly. Yeah, because if you go for big scale, I imagine it must be very hard to basically remove all this perlite from the grains, because once you got the roots that are developed around the perlite, it's quite very, very challenging to...
Yeah, it's not an efficient process at all, is it?
Yeah.
So yeah, we obviously had to put some in the food waste. That might change depending on whether we think it's a good idea or not.
Well, at least you are recycling it with the worms, so that's a good point. But yeah, in the future, maybe you can think of another kind of media to grow your seedlings.
Yeah.
I know that some people just grow them without any media.
Right.
They just put it on the newspaper, and they just put the seed on the newspaper.
Yeah.
And the light on it.
Yeah.
Maybe not the light from the very beginning. They may wait for a few days. And then obviously the roots are just growing one into each other. I don't know which one is the best process, but obviously there is a bit of research to do here. So they're still very small and they are developing their business. I really think there is a lot of potential. Obviously the surface they have is very, very restricted, so I don't think they will be able to grow at really big commercial scale. But still, it's very interesting to see the process. So if you're in the area, just go by and say hello and have a look at the different setups. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are watching this video on YouTube, you will see that on the description of the video just below, you will have access to some free gifts. First, you have access to a 6-step process to be able to build your own aquaponics system in good conditions. I developed this 6-step process because I found that too many beginners are basically starting aquaponics with a wrong design. So if you want to build your own aquaponics setup, please just follow this 6-step process. It's completely free, right? I really designed it to help you to build your setup in good conditions and therefore to succeed in aquaponics. The second gift is for people who already have aquaponics. A very common problem we have in aquaponics is that we got the leaves of the vegetables that are turning yellow, and the reason why is because basically in aquaponics we sometimes need to add some minerals, otherwise the vegetables have some deficiencies. So if you have this problem, I made a special video about it as well, and you can have access to it in the description of the video. It's the free bonus video. If you are very interested into aquaponics, you can also have access to a webinar, a free webinar specific to aquaponics. I deliver a lot of information. Finally, you are probably aware that I wrote a digital aquaponics manual called The Art of Aquaponics.
and you can have access to a free excerpt of this aquaponics manual where I add a lot of value and I give you a lot of my knowledge about aquaponics. So don't forget that you can have access to those 4 gifts on the description of the video, and I'm sure they're going to help you to develop your aquaponics setup and to produce your own sustainable and healthy food in good conditions. Bye bye. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to get your free gift from this screen. You can also leave me a comment below the video, subscribe to the channel and see my last video. I really hope to see you soon, and I wish you a fantastic success with aquaponics. Have a good crop!